What if I told you one of the most famous healings in the Bible was actually a setup, a carefully laid trap, not just for Jesus, but for a man who had been suffering for years? On this particular Sabbath, the air in the Capernaum synagogue was thick with tension. This wasn't an atmosphere of worship, it was an atmosphere of surveillance. Religious leaders, the Pharisees, weren't there to connect with God. They were there to hunt, and they had their bait. A man with a withered, useless hand. They were using a disabled man as a pawn in their religious chess match, hoping to catch Jesus breaking their rules. But they didn't count on one thing. Jesus was about to turn their trap on its head and expose the rotten core of their entire system. This wasn't just a miracle, it was a showdown. Jesus versus the system. It had become a cage of rules, not a cradle of rest. The Sabbath, as God gave it in the law of Moses, was meant to be a gift. After 6 days of work, it was a day to rest, to stop, to breathe, and to refocus on God. A day for physical and spiritual rejuvenation. But over the centuries, this beautiful gift had been twisted. The religious leaders, especially the Pharisees, had built a massive, suffocating structure of man-made rules around it. In their zeal to keep people from breaking the Sabbath, their traditions eventually led to 39 categories of forbidden activities, all recorded in the Mishnah. These rules were incredibly specific and, frankly, oppressive. You couldn't write more than a couple of letters. You couldn't put out a fire. You couldn't even move an object from one domain to another. Now, let's look at this man at the center of this sting operation. The Bible calls him a man with a withered hand. Luke's gospel specifies it was his right hand, likely his working hand. That's almost all we know. We don't have his name or his story. To the Pharisees, he was just an object, a convenient prop to be used in their scheme to discredit Jesus. His years of suffering, the daily struggle of living with a hand that couldn't function, the shame he might have felt, none of it mattered to them. He was a problem to be leveraged, not a person to be loved. Imagine him sitting there. Maybe he came every Sabbath hoping for a word of comfort. On this day, he finds himself in the crossfire of a theological war. The leaders are watching him, not with compassion, but with cold calculation. They see him as the perfect test case. His condition isn't an emergency, so healing him would be a crystal-clear violation of their specific Sabbath rules. They saw a rule-breaking opportunity. Jesus saw a human being who needed to be made whole. And that difference is the very heart of this story. Jesus knew exactly what they were thinking. He could feel their hostility, their predatory focus. He could have ignored the man. He could have waited until sundown when the Sabbath was over. That would have been the safe, diplomatic choice. But Jesus doesn't do safe when a person's dignity is on the line. Instead, he does the most provocative thing possible. He looks at the man and says, "Get up and come forward." He doesn't just heal him quietly in a corner. He calls him into the center of the room, putting the man, the problem, and the silent conflict on full public display. The tension must have been unbearable. Then Jesus turns his attention from the man to the hunters. He looks right at them and asks a question that cuts through all their religious jargon. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? This question is pure genius. It reframes the whole debate. The Pharisees were obsessed with the technical definition of work. Jesus shifts the focus to the moral definition of good. He exposes that their inaction, their refusal to help, is its own kind of evil. He's saying, you're so worried about your rules for resting that you're willing to let suffering continue. Is that what this day is for? It had lifted rules so high that they had become more important than people and more valuable than mercy. Think about that. These were master debaters, scholars who love to argue endlessly about tiny details. But here, facing this simple, profound moral challenge, they have nothing. Their silence is a confession. It's an admission that their system has no answer for a question of basic human compassion. They are trapped in their own hypocrisy. In that moment, the book of Mark gives us a rare window into Jesus' emotional state. It says, he looked around at them with anger, and he was deeply grieved by their hardness of heart. This isn't just a theological disagreement for Jesus. He is angry at the injustice of a system that would sacrifice a person for a rule. With the hypocrisy of the system exposed and hanging in the silent air, Jesus turns back to the man. He doesn't perform some elaborate ritual or say a long prayer. He gives a simple, powerful command. Stretch out your hand. The man obeys. And as he stretches out his hand, it is completely restored, as whole as the other. It's an instant, undeniable miracle, but it's more than a physical healing. It's a powerful declaration. It's the answer to the question Jesus just asked. Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath? Yes. The act of restoration, of making someone whole, is the very definition of doing good. It is the ultimate purpose of the Sabbath. This act perfectly illustrates one of Jesus' most revolutionary teachings, stated during another conflict with the Pharisees. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The day was created for our benefit, for rest and wholeness. It was never meant to be a master we serve with anxious, burdensome rules. By healing this man, Jesus wasn't breaking the Sabbath. He was revealing its true meaning. He was reclaiming it from the cold grip of legalism and restoring it as a day of life and mercy. The system had to be protected at all costs, even if it meant destroying the one who embodied the very mercy of God. But a rigid system built on power doesn't bend easily. Their response is chilling. The Bible says they went out and immediately began to plot with their political enemies, the Herodians, on how they might kill Jesus. Their reaction reveals the true nature of legalism. When a system of control is challenged, its first instinct isn't to self-reflect, but to eliminate the threat. They would rather conspire to commit murder, a flagrant violation of God's own law, than admit their man-made traditions were wrong. Their rage at being exposed was so great that they began plotting Jesus' death, a grimly ironic answer to his question about whether it's right to save life or to kill. They chose their side. It's easy for us to look back at the Pharisees and judge their hard hearts and blind legalism. But the truth is, the Sabbath Trap still exists. The spirit of a system that prioritizes rules over relationships, programs over people, and tradition over truth is alive and well. It can be found in our churches, our communities, and even in our own hearts. Legalism is that subtle belief that we earn God's favor through our own performance. It's the temptation to create religious checklists, attending services, volunteering, avoiding certain things, and then using that list to judge ourselves and others. It creates an environment where everyone feels pressured to hide their struggles and pretend they have it all together. It turns Christianity from a relationship based on grace into a religion based on works, which is the very thing Jesus came to tear down. He calls us to do the same, to always choose to do good, to always choose to save a life, to always choose people over programs. Have you ever felt your worth in a community was based on how well you followed the unwritten rules? That's the trap. Anytime a system, even a good one, becomes more important than loving the person right in front of you, we are falling into the exact same error as the Pharisees. The story of the man with the withered hand is a powerful reminder that Jesus came to set us free, not to weigh us down. He consistently chose radical compassion over heartless control. He showed us that the heart of God's law is love, and any rule or tradition that gets in the way of loving people is a system that needs to be challenged. The Sabbath is a gift, an invitation to experience God's restoration and peace. Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath, the one who gets to define what it means to honor God, and he defines it through acts of mercy, compassion, and healing. What are some of the Sabbath traps or legalistic rules you see in the world today? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read your perspective. And if this message resonated with you and you want to keep exploring the unfiltered teachings of Jesus, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.